Welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on BMC Discovery, Data Enrichment and Custom Nodes. I'm joined by Matt Lammy, who's going to introduce himself shortly. Just a couple of reminders before we get started. This is an interactive session, so if you do have any questions at any point through the demo, please use the Q&A section of Zoom, which you will find at the bottom. We will also be taking questions at the end when we will unmute you, so there is an opportunity to also speak with us live. So with that, I'm going to now hand over to Matt to go through the agenda and get started. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Sam. Hello, everyone. I thought we'd take a little bit of time today to welcome you all and have a look at something that has been quite a requested capability over the years and has not been as prominently demonstrated as hopefully we'll bring to the table today. And that is the ability to extend the taxonomy within BMC Discovery for yourselves, to look at data that you may have on your estate and bring that information into Discovery where you may not see a natural home for it. You may not think of it as software or any of the taxonomy nodes that are available today, and further relationships as well. And so I thought we'd take some time to bring out the new feature to the table that was released in TIPL 1.19, version 2105, 12.2 to anyone who uses the older version of Discovery versioning, and that is custom node types. So custom nodes, custom roles, and custom relationships. And what I thought we'd do is have a look at what those nodes are, and then jump virtually immediately into a demo and look at how we can execute that within Discovery. So the challenge for today is, how do we extend Discovery? How do we add that data in that we may see for ourselves on our estate that makes us very unique to everyone else? The example we're going to use today is something that is rather generic to most environments: DNS zones and DHCP scopes. We're going to use that as an example of additional data. It wouldn't necessarily be of any value to the next customer along. It may be very specific to yourself. So we're going to use it to look at the opportunity on how we can bring that data in. And the solution as it is are custom node types. And they're referred to as custom nodes, but it's actually nodes, roles, relationships, anything where we can take a software instance and relate it to a completely custom node, not a detailed node, not something that exists in the taxonomy. And that's the slides done. I thought we would just take the time to get as quickly as we can into Discovery and actually see how we do it. So the requirements for creating these nodes in the TIPL, how we can review that data, access that data, how we may present that data to our users, and an additional note that we've added in is to actually forward that data to a CMDB, so the sync mapping as well. And with that, I'm going to stop my sharing and switch to Discovery. So if you can give me one moment. Sam, are we able to see Discovery now?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you.
Fantastic. So this is a lab instance of Discovery. And in here, we've got a little bit of everything. What we don't have are any node types for DNS zones or DHCP scopes at the moment. There's nothing on screen. There's nothing in the taxonomy. So we're going to create some. We're going to create some custom nodes with some custom relationship roles, just to demonstrate the art of the possible. So if we go to the TIPL, we actually have two in here. We have the sync mapping, and we have the patterns, the pattern modules as well. So in here today, we have 3 extra relationship metadata, pieces of metadata. And this is the key to being able to pretty much create anything you want. So today we're going to create two custom node types, and we're going to create a new relationship and two roles as well. So in here, we got extra node kinds. We're going to create a DNS zone nodes, and we're going to create DHCP scope nodes. So we're going to run some PowerShell queries. Anyone who's read ahead will see there's a quick PowerShell command call in here. We're going to query DNS and DHCP. We're going to create nodes called DNS zone and DHCP scope for each zone in each scope. We're going to relate those to the software instances, the relevant software instances. In this instance, we have two DNS servers in Active Directory replication. So they're going to have dual relationships, two software instances to a single custom node. And then the DHCP scopes, we only have a single DHCP server. So we're going to have one software instance to two DHCP scope nodes. And if I just explain a little bit of what we're doing here, we're running a PowerShell command, we're looping through the results, and we are creating custom nodes. So I will come back up to the relationships and kinds in a moment. But with this extra node kind of DNS zone, we are then empowered to do the model functions for custom nodes. And in this instance, it's model.dns zone. Generally stick to the stereotype, the key, the type, the name, and then any custom attributes that you may require. Just as any other piece of tipple pattern, you can create your own attributes, bog standard, absolutely the same after we've declared those new nodes. If we then look at the roles and relationships, just for the sake of simplicity, we're creating the same roles as the nodes, but we're creating a new relationship type configuration. For want of a better word, it could be applied to DNS, to DHCP. It's a configuration relationship, and it was just to demonstrate the capability. And in here, I've actually left in the original out-of-the-box relationship for a detail node. However, we're using a different role. And at this point, we're saying we want a detail relationship with role of element in detail, but with the DNS zone as the role. And on this next line down, we're defining a different relationship. So we have a configuration relationship, element with detail, and a DNS zone role again. So from this pattern, we will create DNS zone nodes for every entry in DNS, of which there are 8, 4 forward, 4 reverse in this environment. And we will create 2 relationships plus all of the out-of-the-box relationships that you get to the pattern and to the primary inference. So if I scroll down just to complete the picture, we've done exactly the same thing for DHCP. In fact, it's verging on identical, other than the query is different and there are some different attributes. Again, we are creating a custom node type, DHCP scope. We will get 2 DHCP scope nodes, and we are creating the same relationship, a detail relationship with a DHCP scope role. And then we're creating a configuration relationship, again, with a DHCP scope role. You can use any taxonomy relationships. You can use a combination of different. You may have a detail node, a detail relationship. It may be how you do a lot of your reporting. You may use custom roles to do identities. And this is just to demonstrate the capability of doing any combination that you require. And with that, we're going to run a scan. I have a scan saved of my 2 domain controllers. There is a DNS server on each of them, and there is a DHCP server on one of them. So this takes about a minute. It's actually been run already. So I'm going to jump to some of the querying to demonstrate the consumption of the data. So if we go to queries, here's some I prepared earlier. We can query as we do with any other node, just a simple search. And one key difference is that because it's not defined in the UI, you will get a lot of the out-of-the-box attributes, the counts, the keys, and then the summary screens tend to be a little bit more involved. So my recommendation would be to know the attributes you may want to report on if you are looking to build reports based on these nodes and relationships. Same thing for DHCP scope. Hopefully we will see 2. And again, we've got the count and the key. Now I'll actually go into one of these. And to anyone that knows Active Directory, DHCP, and DNS, please forgive my choices. I'm not a specialist. I just chose attributes that I thought may present well. So in DHCP, we have a user's scope. Scope named users. We have some lease details. I left this unformatted to show the abilities. And then we pulled in some data. Broadly, that's all coming from PowerShell. So it's all mapped into the custom node. Down the bottom, again, going back to the UI, the UI doesn't know about these nodes. And so it shows the default relationships, the inference relationships, the inferred, the source, where the commands, the hosts, where it's come from. The ones of interest are these 2 relationships here. These to the same software instance, we have the 2 relationships as we detailed in our pattern. We have a detail relationship coming from a DHCP scope to a software instance. And then we have a custom relationship of a configuration relationship going from a DHCP scope to a software instance. They actually go to the same place. They go back up to the SI, which is DHCP server. And to anyone watching, these are out of support versions of Windows. It's more to demonstrate capability. Most functionality is available. In fact, all functionality on reporting, standard reporting, so searching, querying different attributes, using relationship attributes. This actually shows the 2 relationships via a query. So here we have the DNS zones related to the 2 DNS servers that are provoking it. Now that's based on the key that I chose to use, so that I got a single node for all of the matching zones. You may choose to use unique keys. I just wanted to show the capabilities. And here we have our custom relationship, and here we have the out-of-the-box relationship. They were both meant to go to the same place. We've gone to the same places. And if we click into one, again, we'll see down the bottom, 2 software instances and 2 software instances. I'm going to hide the visualization because that's just a little bit in the way. And your normal flags and limiters, combining node types in querying, using skipping traversals, all available in the reporting. So if we run that, hopefully we'll get the 2 DHCP scope nodes, we'll get all of the 8 zones, we'll get some attributes as required, and there's the custom relationship and the out-of-the-box relationship again. And hopefully my scan didn't error this time. I will just have a quick check. Yep. And so it appears as any other discovery. It runs, and there'll be a run command in here somewhere. And one of those run commands will be the commands that we asked it to use. Now this one only had the DNS server on it, so it tried to run it. And it relates to the pattern that we've created. All looks very much identical to a standard piece of TIPL. The next piece of the puzzle is actually a presentation layer. How do we present this data? Now, we can do custom reports. We can upload the custom report channels into Discovery, as I've done here. We're actually going to plan for another webinar to demonstrate this in its entirety, including creating some XML and uploading it into console. But broadly for now, this is just a way of presenting our data. We have a chart, pie, bar charts, how many zones per in direction, forward zones, reverse zones, We can do some filtering. So based on that same attribute, forward and reverse, just show me the reverse zones. There you go, and the related software instances. And the same for some counts. So software instance, relate, and node counts on the related DNS zone nodes. The final piece of the puzzle for today is we have all this data in Discovery. Wonderful. So we can present the data, we can query the data, we can find out how many widgets we have in our estate, and we can collate that information centrally. This may not be the end of that data. You may require that data into your CMDB, like today where we push TLS certificate information. So I've actually done a quick sync mapping in Discovery to forward that data to a CMDB. Now, there is no CMDB, it's using just the shadow copy in this environment, but we can query the data and we can see. So I've mapped my DNS zone to a BMC document CI, and we can run a quick query. Show me BMC document where type is DNS zone, show me the name and the document type. And so this will query the local shadow copy of the transformed data that as it should be pushed to the CMDB, import data sets in your CMDB. That is the data that is being pushed to my CMDB, should I have one. And these are the attributes I've chosen, not very many. There's not much detail. I wouldn't really want that to go to my CMDB, but ultimately it is entirely possible. And so if we can do that end-to-end piece, we can fulfill the requirements that are unique to you as a business, or alleviate where you may have a requirement to gather this data using the power of Discovery and push it out to your CMDB as well. And with that, I think we're about done. So I'm going to switch screen back to the slide and pass back to Sam. So Sam, if you can confirm, and you can see my screen.
Yeah, if you just want to move one slide on. Okay, so hopefully that's been useful to everyone. It's quite a short demo today, but we have got the opportunity to open up for live questions, and we would also, Matt and I, be very keen to hear if there's other subject areas that will interest. But just as a reminder, we do have another Discovery session next week, which is being run by Support. This will be on navigating Windows, BMC Discovery, so there's still time to sign up for that. So that's the 27th. And then Matt will be doing a session with Brian, his colleague, who is also actually on today. They will be running a roadmap session, but we're going to be doing it slightly different. It will be a year in review. We've got 2 sessions that may be of interest. So if you do have any colleagues in any of those regions, feel free to click on that registration. It takes you to both options. So it's the same registration link. And then finally, some of our post-event, Matt joined me very soon after he joined BMC to run a session with You're On Front on the AI Ops series. So if you did miss that, that is also down there as a link with all the recording details. And then Matt's first session that he ran was talking to the outcomes. So that was around blueprints. You can also find that recording as well. Anything that we've shared today will be shared out with you. So the slides, the demo, the recording, and any Q&A that we will get from today. So if we can now move to the next slide, which takes us to the Q&A. And just why I start unmuting everyone, Matt, we do have a question from Eric. Welcome, Eric. I know you join quite a lot to our webinars. So his first question was, are there any documented reserved keywords that should not be used for custom nodes, roles, and rels? So that's the first question.
I don't know about documented. I will definitely follow up with that for you, Eric. The usual start, end, begin, all of those ones will trip you up. Date, any of those will usually give you a bit of a hard time. Traditionally, I tend to just use 12 underscore start date or something like that for unless we're setting attributes. And if we're setting attributes on our nodes, then you've got that same issue of start and end tend to not be happy. But I can definitely, if you've got any examples, please pass them over and we can dig out. And if we don't have documentation, we can definitely look to get that populated for you.
Okay, yeah, it was more of a curiosity. I know, historically and just doing pattern writing, sometimes even including certain words as a tag on a pattern, it can reject those. So I
Absolutely.
thought there may be some considerations here as
Exactly the
well.
same. Yes,
Okay,
absolutely. Exactly the same
okay,
considerations and headaches apply here.
got it.
In
Okay,
fact, I think I ran into it when I was writing that pattern because I was trying to do it too
I
quickly.
Okay, that's good to know. I do have a couple of other questions, but if there are other questions out there, I'm working on putting them in the chat, or I can just throw them out there now.
Eric, if you wouldn't mind, feel free to ask them now and I'll get you to just document them in the chat, because when I go back to Matt later, we can get them written correctly. So if you want to ask them, we don't have any questions at the moment, but I always want to give people the opportunity to talk.
Sure.
So fire
Okay.
away.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah. So the first question is around model maintenance on these custom nodes and understanding if they're handled in the same manner as a standard out of the box node, or if there are any special considerations for that.
If you delete the patterns, the data remains. So you have to do model.destroy or add them to your groupings. So
Okay.
the same sort of set grouping.
Got it. Yeah. So I guess in the example there with, the DNS and DHCP that you gave, so there's a PowerShell query that's run. The nodes are then inferred based on the outputs of that. Is there anything there that would intrinsically age out that node, say, if the query returns a different result on a subsequent scan of the same system or tied to the same software instance?
Not even if you delete the software instance, the data will stay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we do have to build in the handling to the pattern. So if I was looking to release this into the wild, I would have the set removal groups included in
Got
there.
it. Okay. Okay.
If you want to take the really dirty approach, you could do a model.destroy. So I have seen both options used, but I would suggest the removal groups being the way forward.
Got it. Okay, that is helpful. The second question or follow-up question I had was regarding custom root nodes. And Matt, I think we may have touched on this on a call that we had previously, but an example here would be potentially leveraging an MDM solution to pull in things like IP phones, or in our case, like a Zebra handheld device or an iPhone or whatever it may be. Pulling those into Discovery and then having those pass over to the CMDB as an IP phone or whatever the node type would be. I've toyed around with that a little bit, creating a sync mapping pattern that directly references that node type. But was just kind of curious around if you've seen that done, with other customers, or if that's something that you have attempted or achieved as well, because it's something that I think would help us internally extend what we're able to provide for Discovery passing data over to the CMDB.
So something where, like you mentioned, root nodes, so something where you don't have that top level trigger to provoke the synchronization.
Correct. Yeah, it would be something, right? So these wouldn't, be tied back to a host SNMP managed network device. At least what I was looking at was, basically creating a new, node type called something like handheld, or something to that nature, which intrinsically wouldn't have any linkage to a sync pattern or to a predefined out of the box root node.
Absolutely. In that example, what I've seen is there's the sync to CMDB feature. So within the pattern, you are creating your nodes, and because they are relatively disconnected to anything, you have some weird and wonderful trigger that does ultimately track back to something, but it wouldn't be the provocation for that you desire for pushing that to the CMDB. I think it's model.sync that you can actually say sync this node to the CMDB, add it to the queue now, and then that would push it through the transformation. So you have this DNS zone, but you don't have it you've triggered off the SI, but you've actually created something without a relationship, but you do want to push that data to base element or something crazy. You could, within that pattern, you could do the model.sync of that node, or you could create a list of them and then do a model.sync on the all of the created nodes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so. I'm thinking in the experimentation that I've done that I had to define a sync mapping pattern that was basically, taking the out of the box host underscore BMC computer system or host underscore computer system pattern and basically replicating that for the new custom node type.
Yes, absolutely.
It was until doing that, the sync to CMDB option was not available in the UI, but once that was in place, it was available. But to your point, you could also drive it via a sync in the pattern. That makes sense as well.
Absolutely. So the sync in the pattern just pushes it to the sync queue. If you don't have the sync mapping pattern module, then you won't see it available in the sync queue. Absolutely right there. So when I was seeing this on customers, they had exactly the same question. I want to filter. I don't want to push these nodes, but I'm developing the sync mapping. But I haven't got anything. And it was only when we said, right, well, if you upload the sync mapping, that tells Discovery of the existence of these new node types. And that's when they were able to get to see it available in the filter list at the top level.
Got it.
Very interested in the examples. Maybe we can pick up the conversation. I know we've had some conversations previously about the use cases.
Sure.
Thank you, Eric. Did you have any other questions?
I do have one more if
Yes,
I can
please.
spare the
No,
time.
please,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if we have an opportunity to go back into the Discovery UI, but what I was curious about is, specifically in the taxonomy extension, and you brought up the list of these new custom nodes, but if you were to go into customize, is the UI going to be aware of those attributes? Because I think in doing that in on-prem, we were able to define customizations within the actual taxonomy files to help populate what the UI understood were values.
And this is the middle ground, if you like, between having all of the bells and whistles, and hopefully I'm about to half answer Sam's question as well. Hi, Sam. With these custom nodes, they're not visible for blueprinting. They're not visible for Start Anywhere. So you can get them to show up in the visualization, but they're not there in any of the obvious display options. So you can't consume them from a visual side. It's much more around the query language and they're pushing data through Discovery. Absolutely, if you want all of that stuff, then we need to extend the taxonomy out of the box. And for SaaS, that's an update to the product. And for on-premise, you have the TW taxonomy import option to bring in the JSON file as it now is to make it all nice and visible. In fact, does anyone mind if I switch back to Discovery? I have one thing that I can show that hopefully it demonstrates that.
Please do.
So if we go back to Discovery, can everyone see that?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. So this whilst this is a class of data from the CI classes in CMDB mapping, ultimately Discovery is aware it is not in the standard taxonomy, and this, because it's a CMDB class, it's not in the Discovery taxonomy. But if we do the same for our custom nodes, we will see the same thing. This node type is not known in the taxonomy. So that's where we see the limitations of this capability. In theory, the nodes it's entirely possible to use TPL to build your services, but at the current time, Start Anywhere and blueprints are not an option for custom nodes like this. Is that all right for you, Eric?
Yes, yeah, this makes sense. And to your point as well, you can build reporting around them, so you can kind of predefine, hey, these are the fields that our consumers should leverage for these node types.
Absolutely. And the thought process here is this is going to be data that someone really understands and really needs. And so in theory, we will only be getting exactly the information they're looking for and presenting exactly the information in the way they're looking for, whether that be pie charts that should always be 50-50, or whether that be show me everything where there's a missing value in one of these, or something very specific. And that tends to be what this is looking to answer. I'm going to flick over to Sam. Hello, Sam.
Sam, can you hear us? I'm assuming you had your question as well. Did it get answered?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm not sure if you meant me, Sam, or
Me.
You, Sam Lowen.
Yeah, okay. Sort of maybe. I guess it's more of a question of, and hello, Matt. It's more of a question of maintenance, I think. So, my preference will always be use out of the box where possible. Much easier.
Yes.
Sometimes something will need to be custom, and I'm sure I will stumble across things where people are adamant it needs to be a custom node or recognized as something unique. But you ask a different person a different answer. I appreciate that. We might pick out a custom node, and we might create one. And what is a custom node today? It might not necessarily be a custom node tomorrow. It's more of a question of, if we do create custom nodes, they're easily found, and I suppose it's more down to maintenance again. It's similar to there's another chap. Sorry, I missed the name. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry. Who was asking, I guess, about the maintenance side, which is for me one of the sort of key parts. If I had something, can I easily find it, amend it, or remove it if maybe it's no longer needed?
And I think that comes down to two parts. One is within Discovery maintaining that data. So if I see 8 DNS zones today and I see 6 tomorrow, ensuring that the patterns are removing the relevant 2 that we created yesterday. And that's where you use the function set removal group that says on the next execution, delete anything that isn't still there. Ultimately, that's all it does. So that would create that controls the content of stuff within Discovery, and then identifying within Discovery, because you've defined those custom node types. There are the standard attributes: create time, modified time. You may bring in time values and date values into these custom nodes, and so you can see, and you can do your reporting. Show me anything within XYZ amount of time. That's on the Discovery side. On the CMDB sync side, because we've destroyed the node in the in Discovery, the sync pattern should trigger and push that deletion through to the import data set. So theoretically, you can view, control, report, and consume at every stage. With regards to identifying, ideally, you would make your custom node type map with exactly the required data. So if you have a DHCP scope going into a document node in the CMDB, it should look like other document nodes, but with a different type. So you'd have all the arbitrary keys and all that good stuff that you push over to the CMDB. So I think it would be more around maintaining the data in Discovery, and then confirming that the deletions and creations are going through as expected on the CMDB. So the expectation that the receiving side is clean, as long as you're maintaining the Discovery side.
Sure. So I think it'd be more a case of you'd have custom nodes that don't necessarily have any CIs within them would be the ones that are probably redundant then. I'm just thinking if in terms of old custom nodes no longer being required because maybe it's now out the box because I don't
Absolutely.
know, BMC or someone may have recognized this as a valid universal node, and it's just I guess my concern is if there would be any conflict with us coming up with a custom node, which happens to also be something that out the box later down the line, but it doesn't sound like it would be a problem.
Keys would probably be the only one, is the choice of keys. So depending on how they're created in the patterns, but generally it's the sync mappings. And if those sync mappings are custom and you are aware that there is a new capability, a new feature in Discovery that is getting the same data, then you can disable your own patterns, allow the TKU to be updated, see what, and review where that data is going. If in your custom pattern you're pushing to document class, and in the TKU they're pushing to, apologies, I don't know the common data model enough, a different class, then that is a consideration for deletion. You may provoke a train of thought. Let's disable the pattern, delete the existing historic data in Discovery. That will push the deletion markers through to the CMDB, but maybe you don't reconcile that until you've seen the new data coming through and reconciled to existing data in asset class. So it is a consideration if you've got the two pieces coming together.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. Makes sense. I guess it's a little bit tricky to figure out the exact solution without the exact data. So good enough. Thank you. That does answer it.
I think I've got off easy today.
You have. Does anybody else have any other questions? Obviously, we've still got an audience here. So if anyone does, feel free to raise your hand or put a question into the Q&A. Otherwise, I'll be fortunate enough to give you all a bit of time back.
I'm going to add in one more piece of information, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
To anyone who is looking at doing this and using custom node types to create custom mappings into the CMDB, you need the same attributes. You need to declare those custom relationships and nodes in your sync mapping as well as in your pattern modules.
Well, I do not have really questions. I saw it as just custom-made queries, actually, Discovery. Do you have a library of such a custom-made programs?
The queries here?
Yeah. So your patterns, etc.
I think anyone who's unfortunately not documented, we don't have a document library as such. I love the idea of potentially a knowledge sharing. So the communities are a very good source of information there. If you're ever looking to try and create something or something's challenging or not quite working how you expect it to, post it on the communities, and usually someone quite knowledgeable within Discovery, there's a few people, and I'm sure people on this call know who I'm alluding to, will probably respond within a few minutes. There is no library as such, no.
Okay, because this is for some nodes. Do you have also for taggings, for instance, for Azure and AWS?
Yes. In fact, I believe some of the out-of-the-box reports somewhere, I'm not going to go through that now, but I do seem to remember there was some cloud reports somewhere that are doing, I think, exactly what you're saying. Cloud nodes with no tags, cloud nodes with tags. This doesn't have any real cloud discovery. I know it says we have cloud, there's no real content in there to be able to consume that. But definitely post the question and I will look for any links on the documentation or within the platform of where to go to get to those pieces of data that you can then use for your own benefit. So when
version of the discovery of the helix, is that right? Or is it also in previous versions?
this capability, the custom nodes,
Yeah.
as of 12.2 or 2105. So if your typical version is 1.19, then you can use it.
Okay, very good. Good to see it. Thank you.
And I think the purpose for today was that it wasn't as well declared. So we have seen requests come in for custom taxonomy that would have, with the use case given, this has helped answer the question for customers. So it was to try and bring that information out a bit.
Yeah, okay, that's good.